Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have a ton of things to go over. This is going to be full-on exploration guide for 725. That's right, we only have 725 and 726 left. We have done guides on everything else coming before this, and as always we're going to start pretty much from left to right, going over every single lane, things to watch out for, things to note, champions to use, and then we're going to tackle the bosses. So the first path over here, debuff, synthesis, weakness, and stun. Basically, if you happen to stun the opponent whilst they have weakness debuff applied on them, then you're gonna combine them into a power sting, which is gonna let you bypass this that is going to sting node. And here lies the secret. So technically you can use every single champion on this path if you have access to Resonate Mastery, because Resonate Mastery allows every single champion in the game to access weakness debuff, and then landing a parry stun will put a power sting on the opponent. That's far from the ideal way to go about this, but any champion can be used here if you have Resonate Mastery. If you do not, however, that's Gun Sting is obviously a fairly niche node that you will need to work around. You do, however, have this Power Focus 2 node, which I absolutely love, which improves the speed opponents get to level 2, but then significantly reduces their power rate. And you can kind of go ham as long as you don't mind pushing opponents to level 2 and awaiting them afterwards. Then we have Defective Defense, where every time you block an attack, you will gain a Disorient debuff, and this node is annoying. However, the chance is reduced by flat 50% if you parry, and also dashing back and holding block for 1.2 seconds allows you to remove those disorients. It's still finicky, it's still annoying, it's still gonna cause you to take more block damage and dance about. Not a fan of this at all. So champions to use here. Now we obviously have the two bigger, more known power sting champions in the game. Spider Ham is gonna have a great time. Yellow Jacket definitely can also be used because that's gonna sting, improves the potency of power stings and all that other good stuff. Now, most commonly available solution is going to be Mr. Fantastic synergy with either Dr. Octopus or She-Hulk or Sentry, or whoever else he had that synergy with, where any science or tech champion gains ability to place passive power stings on opponent. They still qualify for this node, so that is the best solution. Bring in She-Hulk, Mr. Fantastic, and then whoever you want from science or tech class, and you're going to have superb time. Even though, again, as I said before, you can technically use any champion. And alternatively, champions that have reliable, straightforward access to weakness, like Immortal Abomination, for example, like Wasp, for example, and I'm sure a couple of others, even though weakness is not really the most common debuff in the game. Still, if you have base access to weakness, that will help you as well. As far as opponents goes, there is a champion, but other than that, there's nothing really too tricky. Let's move on to the next lane, and this is going to be Superiority Scoundrel, Backhanded Compliment, Surging Vengeance, and Tyranny. Basically, only villain champions can gain power on this lane, but all your opponents are going to be villains, so this node is only potentially going to be limiting you. And Surging Vengeance is eventually delayed all or nothing lane. They drop level 1, level 2, and then they will pretty much only use the level 3. Starting from beginning after special 3, there we go. However, you can taunt the opponents if you have superiority, and you gain superiority by using a villain champion, which you ideally want to do anyways if you want to gain power. And superiority works in a way where if you heavy attack the opponent, you place taunt on them for 8 seconds, and obviously taunted opponents will throw their special attacks, while taunted the defender's defensive power gain rate is also reduced by 50%, which can be quite useful. So here, just use any villain. That's it. The requirement is use villain, drop heavy attacks. So whatever is in your roster, whatever you fancy the most, use villain champions, heavy opponents now and then. You're gonna be good. There is Killmonger, so access to armor break would be ideal as well, but that is about it. Yeah, nothing else to say. Bring a villain champion. Done. Whatever you like, whichever villain you like. Rage, Power Shield, Hurt Locker, Poison Vulnerability. Now, to this lane, it might look a bit tricky, especially starting with Miles. There's some evade involved as well, but in general, it wasn't too bad at all. Now, Rage, you don't really need to worry about it too much, especially if your special attacks don't do too much damage. The entire idea here behind this node is that obviously you want to capitalize on poison vulnerability, because poison also would bypass the power shield lane. So I personally ended up using like Archangel for this lane, Immortal Abomination, a handful of other champions. Whoever can access poison can bypass power shield very effectively, and therefore, since your regular attacks deal no damage, unless you want to, and you want to start throwing special attacks, you will never trigger Rage. So, Power Shield and Rage kind of cancel each other out, and just means that you want to focus on damage over time effects, ideally poison, so you get the benefit from poison vulnerability. But you can just use any damage over time champions, and you're gonna have decent time. Why not? So long as you, again, ideally, you don't want to be throwing special attacks unless you have a way to deal with those buffs. That's about it. Again, I personally just largely use stuff like Archangel, but let's say Mole Man could be a perfectly viable option here as well. Why not? And a whole bunch of other champions who can place ton of bleeds, ton of poison. So Abomination with Red Guardian, why not? You can bring it in. Man-Thing. Yeah, Man-Thing would be a very interesting option here. I actually want to try this out with Man-Thing. Yeah, I'll try and record a video with Man-Thing. There we go. Let's move on to the next lane. Now we have Buff Synthesis, Cruelty, and Precision. Combo Party, which enables every single champion to access Cruelty, and by extension, every champion, if you have Dexterity Mastery, can access Precision. So again, every champion theoretically can be used for this lane. And the only other node is that opponents have unblockable special attacks. And then you have to deal with Guardian, Sentry, Annihilus, Darkhawk, Mr. Fantastic, and Airwalker. And for the most part, it's really not much of an issue. It might seem like quite troublesome lane, but you don't care about having to dex Guardians level 1. You should be able to do that. Now, this buff Cruelty Synthesis thing lets you gain a steadfast buff that allows you to block unblockable attacks. It's really not needed though. It really isn't needed. And it's just more or less a regular lane with opponents having unblockable special attacks. I think I ended up using Medusa for the Darkhawk, or Magneto. I think I used Medusa because this Darkhawk looked a bit scary. But again, you can just Quake him, you can bring in Vision Arcus, and just Armor Shatter him. You can Medusa and Armor Shatter him. There are plenty of options how you can bypass a robot champion, because his level 1 is not easy to dex, and that's like the only champion that you can't really dex the level 1. Everybody else is just a regular lane. Do whatever champion brings the bigger smile on your face. You can kind of pick whatever you want. It's not going to be specifically fun time because there are no damage modifiers, but it's really not the hardest lane either. Right, this one is actually finicky but fun. So we can start with a simpler node. There's an Arc Overlord, which is actually super helpful for you. You have Faltering Mind that extends the duration of Falter debuffs, which is fine, whatever. But this Missing in Action lane is quite cool. Whenever a buff on the defender expires, you have 3 seconds to land a heavy attack. If you land your heavy attack within those 3 seconds, opponents gain a falter for 5 seconds. Otherwise, you gain the falter. And that's kind of cool. So you want to keep an eye to the Arc Overload, and as soon as Arc Overload expires, you want to drop a heavy attack. And then you have this Villainy Superiority node combined with Swing and Miss. And Swing and Miss lets you gain a ton of Furies. And it was a very fun time. So whenever the defender is suffering from a falter and misses the attacker gains a Fury buff, increasing attack by 25% for 6 seconds. If you have superiority, so if you're using a villain champion, these Furies are indefinite. So you can bring in any champion here at all whatsoever, and you can end up with like 20-30 Fury buffs active on you. The only thing that you need to keep an eye out for is that you land that heavy attack whenever they have buffs expiring, and that's it. And it's quite fun time. It's a bit tricky to get used to at first, but again, you can just bring in any villain. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Ideally, if you have a villain that can deal with miss mechanic, then even better. So you don't have to worry about faltering on the opponent, but you can play around it. And it's a very fun time. It's a very interesting time. You can gain tons of furies, and you can have loads of fun. I enjoyed doing that lane. It wasn't the easiest. You had to mess about here. You had to kind of like time your heavy attacks and stuff like that. But it's very fun. It's definitely enjoyable. And this last lane is the easiest. I'm not going to talk about it much now. You have this stun, bleed, debuff synthesis where you can place poison debuffs on the opponent, which basically amounts for nothing. So any champion that can inflict bleed, yeah, you can change that to poison. Cool, whatever. The only node that really matters on this lane is energy adoption lightning, which again opens you for Havoc, Kingpin, Silver Surfer, who else was there? Ghost Cheese. A ton of champions who can abuse that node. And it's fairly straightforward. You're gonna blitz through this with like Ghost in like a minute. The other Indomitable and Shock Tether node, they don't matter much. Just bring in your Havoc, Kingpin, your Ghost or your Silver Surfer, whoever, and you're gonna be doing great. Trust me on that one. It's a very fun experience. Not too many tricky fights there either. And now we have boss fights. The 3 boss fights. Now the Void is somewhat tricky, but at the very least it's fairly straightforward. Now he has Safeguard, so you can't deal massive burst amounts of damage with your hard-hitting champions. So champions that use damage or time effects will be ideal, or bypass Safeguard. Now you have Force of Will, where defender is immune to ability accuracy reduction. Cool. And we have the Setup and Spike. Whenever the defender is knocked down, they remove their active debuffs. If more than 6 debuffs are removed, they take 500% of attacker's attack as direct damage. Otherwise, the attacker takes a burst of physical damage equal to 50% of defender's attack. That's it. So the name of the game here is you either do not knock down Void at all, ever, or you put on a lot of debuffs on him. It's a fairly simple thing to keep your eye out for. So you can quite literally use any champion here. Just watch out for the Void's timer, because Void doesn't have any magic attack increases, things like that. Obviously, it's a big Void, so it's going to hurt. But if you can use a champion that doesn't require using heavies or special attacks, you can just fight this as a casual Void, ideally having access to damage or time effects. Now, on the other hand, having any sort of debuff shrug off ability would be quite useful. I actually think Jabari Panther would be quite neat for this one, I think. But you can also go the other way, where you inflict a ton of debuffs on a Void, knock him down, and deal a lot more damage. Now, from my personal experience, Nick Fury and Mole Man were my best options. I know that there are going to be other decently good champions available here. But yeah, Nick Fury was very easy, because you could just do like your medium, light, mediums, whatever, and then, I don't know, drop a level 2 and he's going to take 500% damage. Because it's quite easy to get to 6-7 buffs with Nick Fury. Sorry, 6-7 debuffs. And similar thing with Mole Man. With Mole Man as well, and just build up to level 3, enter the frenzy at some point, and just lay in on the guy. And then once you are in frenzy, it's going to be absolutely no joke at all to keep those 6 bleeds active, because every combo places 5 bleeds on Void. So yeah, you can use any champion as long as you don't knock him down, or use champions that debuff like crazy. If you have any specific questions about this fight, let me know in the comment section. Now, this Platinum Pool, it's also fairly straightforward fight with a similar idea, where he has Juke, it doesn't matter, draw 5 cards, so he's going to have more of his abilities available to him, and they can be quite tricky because he's very random. Sometimes he's unblockable, sometimes he regens, and there's that one card that bleeds you every time you touch him if he has like less health than you do or something. That one card is definitely something you need to watch out for. And then we have this small smorgasbord. The defender has 100% chance to purify all incoming debuffs. Whenever the defender purifies a debuff, they gain a snack charge. Every 30 seconds, if the defender has less than 10 snack charges, they gain a regen, passively recovering 25% of their health over 6 seconds. If the defender has 10 or more snack charges, they gain a degeneration passive, removing 10% of their health over 6 seconds. So this is a very simple. You can do this fight with pretty much any champion just by parrying him a lot and just having him degenerate. If you want help, again, Nick Fury, Sunspot, any champion that inflicts a ton of debuffs will let you consistently degenerate this guy down to no health. So long as the champion has access to a lot of debuffs and does not necessarily rely them for the gameplay, because all of them are going to get shrugged off, you're going to have quite an easy time. Alternative options would be champions like Warlock and champions like Mysterio that has access to passive power lock, because he purifies debuffs, he does not purify passives, and Warlock still works, Mysterio still works. I have heard great things about Yellow Jacket on this fight, that he also works, and I'm sure there are several more champions, but in general, yeah, you can either debuff him a lot, or passively heal block him, or try and passively heal reverse him. But it was quite an interesting fight. I liked it a lot, but you definitely do have plenty of options. And Dragon Man, Stunning Reflection, Empowered Immunity, and Extend. Now, Dragon Man, Stunning Reflection, do remember that you can switch off the Stunning Reflection. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with playing entire fight, not parrying the guy. However, if you apply Poison or Incinerate, that does shut down the Stunning Reflection nodes. And obviously, Dragon Man's poison immune. However, you can incinerate the guy, and that will help you a ton. On top of it, he has empowered immunity, which doesn't really amount for much unless you try to bleed or poison him. Extend is kind of whatever. And also, keep in mind that if he has his power gain active and he drops like a special attack, that's going to take away that power gain buff. And also, if he drops a level 1 and you block it, then you end up getting a debuff that just heals you with willpower. Now, I have soloed this guy with Human Torch and Void, and I'm sure there are plenty of other options as well available for the guy. I'm quite sure that, let's say, Sunspot would be quite an interesting option. He is a Mystic champion, which is, once again, something to keep in mind. You do not want to armor break the guy, but in general, I think She-Hulk would do a fantastic job here as well. I think most of the champions can, at the very least, chip away at him. Now, he's quite tanky, quite beefy, but you can definitely get him done, because the fight itself isn't too difficult, because, yeah, you can either switch off the Stunning Reflection, or just block the level 1s. The key aspect is not to get cornered. Also, any champions that have power control available would be quite decent for this fight. Now, a quick advice, you probably don't want to use Dr. Doom, because level 3 and his passive stun mechanic would count for Stunning Reflection, so avoid that. But other than that, yeah, you have your Voids, you have your Human Torches, you have your She-Hulks, you have whatever harder hitters you have available that do not rely on bleed or poison, and you're going to be doing just fine. I think you can even probably ghost the guy. There's absolutely no reason why not ghosting him. But that is it about 725. So we only have one quest left for tomorrow, 726. But yeah, that is it for now, and I'm going to catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the